The Showa era of Godzilla films is an eclectic mix of allegories, social commentary, and wild and wacky sci-fi fantasy featuring suit actors portraying both heroic and fearsome beasts, leaving humankind at their mercy. With this era being the foundation of this channel, I feel obligated, well, not kidding, to give you, my sole viewer, a clearer idea of what aspects of these films speak to me more than others. Am I more about keeping Godzilla a super serious atomic monster, or on the other end of the spectrum, like to see men in costumes do wrestling matches over model cities? I'll let my personal opinions of all 15 speak to my sensibilities as I rank the entire Godzilla Showa era run. Let's get it. Okay, before we begin, quick disclaimer. I do not hate any of these movies, and can in fact find enjoyment from each and every one. Some are just stronger efforts than others, and I don't want to misconstrue that as pure disdain. That being said, let's start off with the bottom of the barrel. Number 15, Godzilla vs. Gigan. This film is usually low on most fans' lists, but for me it's rock bottom. I'll first say that its high points are the introduction of Gigan, who unfortunately must share villain duty with a bigger baddie in King Ghidorah, so it doesn't feel like he's earned the billing. The human cast is pretty amusing as well, feeling like a Scooby-Doo-like group of meddling kids, each with personality quirks. But outside of that, between the obvious budget cuts this movie displays, be it through stock footage, shabby recycled suits, and unconvincing props and miniatures, there is the inane alien invasion plot that drives this film into a bonkers territory. While all of that should be a recipe for a fun time, it is bogged down, literally and figuratively, by some of the worst slow-motion fighting that makes you feel sleepy, or watching paint dry as a better option. Number 14, Godzilla vs. Megalon. While this entry is usually regarded as the worst of the series, I'll give it this. It works really well for kids. Way more energetic and shorter feature than vs. Gigan. It also has a few memorable things going in its favor over the prior. Jet Jaguar's theme song, and the iconic Godzilla tail slide. Still goofy as fuck, and at its core, a costume wrestling match. This movie is probably to blame for the reputation Godzilla films have had for decades, being that it was one of the films that I'd seen played most as a kid. With the high points set aside, it also could be said that this movie's costumes and budget are almost as bad, if not worse, than Godzilla vs. Gigan. So bad, in fact, that the editor forgot to cut the scene where they yell, "Action!" Number 13, Godzilla's Revenge. For many, this takes the cake for the worst Godzilla film of that era also, mostly due to its heavy reliance on stock footage, save for the scenes featuring Ichiro with Minya or Gabbro. But I'll make a case for this film in which to see why it ranks higher than the last two. If you approach this not as a Godzilla film, since he and the other kaiju are figments of Ichiro's fertile imagination, but a social commentary rather, about a latchkey kid dealing with a two-income household, something very relevant to this day, and how they cope with a lack of guidance when dealing with bullies. It has its charm, and one has to wonder if Godzilla is merely a character he watches the movies of, or actually exists in his world. The end result feels like a movie a teacher would show you in class, in the same realm as the anti-drug reels and such. Number 12, Godzilla Raids Again. Those who are looking for a movie closer to the tone of the original will find this likely it, except nowhere nearly as engaging. A sequel to the 1954 classic that features the debut of a future co-star, Anguirus, locked in battle with Godzilla should sound exciting. It's not. In fact, the human drama is dry and boring, focusing on a fishing company and its team of flyers dealing with, well, property damage from two warring kaiju. The original Japanese version fares better, as usual, as the US dub features unnecessary narration, contributing to the slogginess of the overall story. I personally love the monster designs here and some of the shots of the two facing off, and it's well shot, but it's not enough to salvage the overall picture. Number 11, Son of Godzilla. A step in the wrong direction, as the last thing Godzilla ever needed was a pudgy clay boy to boost the interest in the series. But alas, Minya is real, and once you accept that, this movie ain't half bad. In fact, I personally love the Godzilla entries that take place on islands. While I prefer Versus Sea Monster over this, it still has an interesting plot about a group of scientists stranded on an island after conducting weather experiments. After a freak storm, the equipment is rendered useless, and the group must tolerate a nosy reporter, an island girl, and a newly hatched baby Godzilla, who's almost a snack for a giant praying mantis, or giant mantis, called Kamacuras. Godzilla arrives, and so does a giant spider named Kumonga, and then the race for survival is on. The premise is pretty good, and so are the marionette kaiju. Minya and Godzilla? Not so much, as this movie features quite possibly the ugliest Godzilla suit ever. Number 10. King Kong vs. Godzilla. Another film that was constantly broadcast over the other films. This entry is both silly and fun, pitting the two titanic monsters from both sides of the Pacific together in a hyped match. But the hype is short-lived once you see the shabby gorilla suit used to represent Kong, who has grown considerably larger in order to trade blows with a beefier Godzilla. He's also given a power upgrade, as he now can channel electricity to piss off the King of the Monsters even more. Best seen in its original Japanese cut, big surprise, which has none of the schlocky American B-movie sci-fi commentary from your neighbor's dad, Eric Carter. One of the highest grossing Godzilla films of the era, the duo are now back in the modern-day MonsterVerse with the same over-the-top energy the original injected into the series. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but significant by cementing the Versus concept into the mainstay going forward. Number 9. Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Depending on your tastes, you will either like this movie or find it dull. A sequel to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, probably the most sci-fi the Showa films have ever felt, as we not only get aliens for the first time in the series, but actually a visit to their homeworld of Planet X. The film also boasts a more international collaboration, with Hollywood actor Nick Adams playing opposite of both Akira Takarada and Kumi Mizuno. Special effects are pretty damn good here, and you could tell that Tsuburaya is on track to rival effects companies here in the States. The downside here is that the kaiju battles are brief, but more refined, and the inclusion of Godzilla performing the she dance alters the monster's perception from villain to hero going forward. Number 8. Destroy All Monsters. Before the Avengers assembled on screen from separate individual films, it was Toho's 1968's Destroy All Monsters that was intended to end cap the Godzilla franchise by making a grand spectacle battle royale. As a kid, this was the ultimate film that I didn't see get played on TV enough. The assortment of familiar and unfamiliar kaiju was a giant monster fans' event. However, the plot is pretty standard, alien invasion fare recycled from Monster Zero, and the human cast is mostly left with reacting to the chaos with dull surprise. Set in the near future, Earth is under siege by the Kilak, a race of silver-clad spacewomen who take control of Earth's monsters and attack the larger cities of the world, while mostly appearing smug as the humans scramble to defend themselves. The climactic battle is fun, but once you realize a portion of the kaiju you are trying to see on screen are mere puppets left to the sidelines like Baragon, Varan, and Manda, the latter getting more screen time, the hype fades fast. However, it is still a grand spectacle of suitmation and wirework puppeteering, and the grand finale is packed with fun moments with each of the participating kaiju getting their shots in to defeat King Ghidorah once and for all. Number 7. Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Featuring the giant crustacean Ibira, a glorified cameo in Mothra, and an out-of-character Godzilla, let's not forget the giant condor, of course, Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster is a somewhat refreshing change in tone in this series. Many will write this off as a recycled idea intended for King Kong with no strong substance. I view this as a necessary entry that pushes the variety of films that makes the Godzilla series appeal to multiple sensibilities. Here, the movie is primarily set on an island with no heavy opposition to the King of the Monsters, both from the aspect of military power or kaiju rivalry, as Godzilla is clearly the biggest danger to all, despite his more King Kong-like persona. The human cast is fun, with recognizable actors like Akira Takarada and Kumio Mizuno, as a group of castaways who must find a way off this place while being pursued by the Red Bamboo, a paramilitary organization developing atomic power led by the great Akiko Hirata, and Ibira, used as a blockade on and off the landmass. The light adventure mood and breezy score highlight this film, make it a fun passing of the time. While Ibira is hardly a challenge for Godzilla, it's still a great design and captivating while on screen. Mothra looks like this will be her adult prop swan song, and the giant condor segment is hilarious as it displays the point that not all giant monsters can handle going toe-to-toe with the big G. Number 6. Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I really struggled with putting this higher on my list, as this entry also shows the versatility of storytelling in these films. Feeling almost like an art house film of its era, the formerly known Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster is a psychedelic Greenpeace vehicle, with its anti-pollution message peppered with LSD moments of random animation bits and body horror. Ghidorah is a kaiju design unlike any other yet to be seen in the series, and fits the overall polluted atmosphere of the film. One of Godzilla's most challenging opponents, the towering pile of toxic sludge has many forms and a variety of offensive powers that required the combined efforts of both man and monster to defeat. The soundtrack features blaring brassy horns, juxtaposed with 70s psychedelic grooves, leaving you fixated on a movie you can't initially wrap your head around. I can understand how this was perceived as the nail in the coffin for the series, as producer Tomoyuki Tanaka did for the time. But being able to appreciate it outside of that era makes this a high mark. Number 5. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is a vibrant and explosive film, making it one of the most dazzling of the 70s bracket of movies in the Showa era. Another villain unlike any Godzilla has faced, the robot double is a malicious tool of space ape men loaded to the rivets with colorful weaponry, all concealed in its shiny space titanium hide. While Godzilla's design is as goofy as it gets, it's also lovable at the same time, cementing that he is the hero, despite the film focusing on the awakening of King Caesar to save mankind. And speaking of King Caesar, the shaggy lion god of the Izumi people gets to shine a bit here, but was easily dismissed as one of Godzilla's lesser allies, a torch passed on by the savage beating of Anguirus early in the film. The pyrotechnics are turned up to 11, and so is the rest of this wild entry. Highly entertaining, if nonsensical at the same time. Number 4. Godzilla. Yep, I know, this should be number 1, but this is my list and I recognize it's a great movie, but it doesn't get the replay value as the ones that will follow. The film that started it all is both moody in tone and visuals, helped by almost a documentary-like black and white footage depicting the monster's rampage on Tokyo. The unsettling fear felt by the people affected by this radioactive terror is felt, and the anti-atomic allegory is strong. There is no fun factor here, and that's not a bad thing, as it establishes the raw power of this remnant from an older time, heightened by man's mishandling of nature, and the bill that comes due. Number 3. Mothra vs. Godzilla. A well-crafted film highlighting two of Toho's most beloved kaiju at odds, Mothra vs. Godzilla is the sweet spot for most fans in terms of tonal desires when it comes to Godzilla versus another kaiju. Here, he's still a frightening threat to Japan like his original film, but now he's opposed not just by man, but Mothra, the benevolent bug from her self-titled film, eschewing the humor from the prior King Kong vs. Godzilla for a more subdued and somber atmosphere. The stakes feel higher, and the effects works are beautiful. The ponderous feeling of the story is in contrast with the more frenetic energy felt in the later entries. But it never feels boring or sleepy. The battles are well choreographed, and the third act is a satisfying conclusion. Number 2. The Terror of Mechagodzilla. Between this and the next and final entry on my list, it was a tough call. I love Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is funny in itself, as I didn't feel that way when I first saw this back in 1985. The movie doesn't bring Godzilla into the picture until late in the second act, and while you wait for him, the film focuses on newcomer Titanosaurus, also leaving the anticipated return of Mechagodzilla on the back burner. As time has gone by, however, I really appreciated what was attempted here, especially when considering it in context of where the overall series was at that point. This film was a return to the better spectacles of the earlier films in the series, with the shift from rompy fun to more of an ominous buildup. The color palette even switches from 74's versus Mechagodzilla's bright and saturated aesthetic to a more subdued and muted one here. The cast ranges from flat as paper to over-the-top insanity, making this feel fairly uneven, but one cannot deny the monster action is phenomenal. From Titanosaurus bringing on the brawl with Godzilla, while the new Mechagodzilla lights up Tokyo in the most explosive destruction on mankind ever seen. The film's third act is great fun and really taps into all things I love about this franchise. Number 1. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Even as I set out to make this list, I had never seriously considered what my top favorite was. I really had to weigh out what I would consider a really good time, and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, says it all. It's chock full of monster action, silly pseudoscience, and euphoric fantasy that establishes many staples that would follow in the series' numerous entries. The introduction of Godzilla's arch foe, a space creature, the ensemble kaiju cast, monster conversations, and a heroic Godzilla himself all start here, enriching the Toho universe of giant monster films, and steering it away from dour allegory to pure delightful creature carnage with spectacle. While Terror of Mechagodzilla was my first contender for this slot, this really hits the sweet spot in what overall encompasses the franchise as a whole. Yes, it may not be your pick, but for me, this is a movie that gets rewatched frequently. It may not be the masterpiece of the original 1954 film, but on the level of pure entertainment, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, is aces. And there you go. This is my current ranking of the Showa era of Godzilla films. While Toho has produced several other standalone or peripheral kaiju features, those are worthy of their own list. What do you think is number one on your list? Comment down and share your rankings. Please share this video with other Godzilla fans. Hit the like if you actually like this content to let me know you want more. And of course, please hit subscribe. It's free, I promise. With Mechagodzilla March 2025 coming up, I'll be back with more kaiju content here on the Showa Showcase. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, friends.